people in Shanghai lined up around the block for a taste of America's latest export. The New York burger chain Shake Shack opened its first restaurant on the Chinese mainland this week.
I think this is juicier than other burgers from fast food joints like McDonald's. It's more expensive, but I prefer this because it's tastier.
But the Shanghai Shake Shack falls short of offering the full American experience. The burgers between these buns come from Australian cows, and the hot dogs and bacon strips from European pigs. Beef and pork are among the $110 billion worth of U.S. products subject to higher Chinese tariffs imposed last year. Those were in retaliation to U.S. levies on $250 billion of Chinese goods. But U.S. President Donald Trump says he's meeting his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping this month, hoping to sign what he says will be the biggest trade deal ever made.
There are some points that we don't agree to yet, but I think we will agree. I think when President Xi and myself meet, every point will be agreed to.
The U.S. and China accepted a truce in their trade war in December. If there's no deal by March, the U.S. will impose tariffs on an extra $200 billion of products.
I think we can do it by March 1st. Can you get it down on paper by March 1st? I don't know. I can say on March 1st, the tariff on China goes to 25%, and that's a big tariff.
China and the U.S. are each other's top trading partners, and analysts say a deal will enrich both economies. It'll also help Shanghai's fast food fans get the real thing. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on the story now with Jeffrey Tucker in Atlanta. He's Editorial Director at the American Institute for Economic Research. Welcome back to the program, Jeffrey. So, no deal yet, but Donald Trump seems very keen to meet Xi Jinping to hammer out some sort of an agreement before the March deadline. Is this a good sign that the talks are on track?
I think it's a really good sign. This trade war has been completely unnecessary. But what's been interesting is to see the humbling of both these two statesmen, Donald Trump and China too. It has not worked. Everybody agrees that this has been a disaster for everybody involved. It's harmed China. It's harmed the U.S. American exporters have been suffering. We've even seen Apple pay a very heavy price for this trade war. It's been completely pointless. I think at this stage, everybody knows it's got to end. This is a big step for Donald Trump to admit that he's been wrong. And I think there's most likely going to be a deal. By the way, Oscar, your segment made me very hungry.
Yes, me too. Okay, so one of the tangible things that came from the latest round of these meetings was China's promise to buy more US soybeans, which is a huge win for US farmers who've been suffering ever since this trade war happened, losing their biggest customer in China. I'm wondering, though, this isn't exactly what Donald Trump's looking for, is it? He wants more structural changes from China. Do you think he'll see that?
Yeah. I don't think, well, there's not going to be any change. This could be a propaganda victory for him, but there'll be no change in the intellectual property laws. This stuff's too complicated. China doesn't have laws anything like the U.S. As far as corn and soybeans, you really have to remember that we have in the United States this gigantic government, I would just call it a plan, to produce as much of this stuff as possible. I mean, this stuff is stacked all. We're practically creating new mountain ranges in the Midwest to stuff all this corn. We stuff it in our gas. We put it in all of our food. We can't even get rid of this nonsense. We've got way too much of it. And so he's looking for some place to dump this stuff so that he can keep being popular with the Midwest voters who are producing all this corn and the soybeans. So this is really about politics, and I don't know what China's going to do with all this corn. I mean, maybe they'll figure out how to stick it in their gas tanks just like the U.S. has.
But let's look at the other demands that the Trump administration has been making on China, the more difficult ones. They want China to open up their market to foreign competitors. They want to stop them allegedly stealing trade secrets and making changes to that in Beijing. I mean, these are the key things that are tougher to achieve, but do you think they'll be able to achieve it by March 1?
No, and it's sometimes very difficult to sort out what is just propaganda and what's reality. It's very difficult from an American point of view to really understand whether there's terrible, nefarious things going on, as Trump claims, or it's just the difference between two legal regimes. I don't think there's going to make any real substantial progress in this, but that's okay as long as both sides can claim a victory and we can get on forward with rebuilding supply chains and getting access to each other's markets in a way that benefits average people. I think it's worth it. If Donald Trump wants to declare himself the winner, that's fine by me.
Donald Trump, as we know, prides himself on being the ultimate deal maker. Will he be able to seal a deal before March then?
I think both sides have a very intense interest in making some kind of deal. And they will all both go away saying this is the best thing that ever happened. The fact is, though, that this long trade war, it's not quite a year old now, but it's been extremely costly, mostly completely pointless. It's been a tremendous waste of time, and it's been very harmful for consumers and producers on both sides. But now that we're seeing both the U.S. and China suffer as a result of it, we're finally getting our leaders to come to the table and make a deal. I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that the tariffs will not be increased, that a deal will be made, and both sides will walk away happy. And I hope that this is the end of the trade war nonsense. I mean, I'm afraid that's not going to be true because Donald Trump, for him, he thinks it's his great contribution to the world, protectionism. He's wrong about that. But at least in this case, I think we might be seeing a victory for consumers and producers on both sides in the near term.
You will wait and see. Jeffrey Tucker in Atlanta, thank you as always.